Grandmother is ecstatic to be arrested by police on her 93rd birthday. Have you ever seen a 93-year-old grandma detained by the police? This grandmother was delighted about it, even though you wouldn't think she would be. And here's why. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. Basically, Dumont's mother embodies every ideal of a grandmother. She is kind, and enjoys spending time with her grandchildren. She's ready to be engaged and lessen the stress of parenting after years of raising her own kid. Grandma appears to be a really helpful grandparent. She reached 93 years old recently, yet she doesn't appear a day older than 70. Grandma is still actively involved in her family's life despite her advanced age. Dumont gave her mother's birthday a lot of attention and considered what she might do to make the day memorable. When someone turns 93, what do you gift them? Grandma was really only truly thrilled about one item, aside from her family. Grandma is an avid supporter of the cops. It's the real police force, not the band. Grandma's daily routine revolves heavily around keeping up with the police, which may seem like an odd obsession for an elderly woman. Grandma watches an America's Most Wanted episode after an episode of Cops every night. She frequently remarks on how the world's toughest and least respected jobs are held by police officers. She has such a strong affection for police officers that it inspired a birthday party. The Augusta, Maine Police Department, Grandma's local precinct, engages in a lot of community involvement. This usually entails working closely with kids and teens who want to become police officers in the future. Some of these little police officers respond in the cutest way possible. It's designed to encourage the kids to imagine themselves as police. Children may utilize this adorable cardboard cutout to strike a picture op. It's definitely better to pretend to be a mini-cop than to desire to rob people, isn't it? Although the outreach program of the precinct primarily targets younger children, many adults are also eager to participate. The local police have a lot of acquaintances across the community who are happy to pose since they are so laid back and eager to serve. This all culminated in Grandma's unexpected birthday excursion. Dumont posted on Facebook on July 9, 2018, stating, "Mom was arrested. Yes, they were arrested. You folks didn't trust me when I said that she was the evil one. We were all affected by her, yet we persisted." Even though Dumont made this seem like a severe arrest, Ellen was really paid a special visit that day. She was led to the squad car by a polite officer, where she was allowed to get up close and personal looks at some important police gear. For the elderly woman, this was her dream come true. Grandma was first placed in the back of the car by the police, who acted as though she was about to be arrested. It was fantastic to experience this up close for a woman who is obsessed with police dramas, and she was really thrilled to be locked up. But the good times didn't end there. Dumont shared on Facebook that she was able to view both the front and rear of the police car, and even activate the siren by pressing the button until it began to scream. A historic occasion. A couple witnesses spoke with an actual police officer while approaching the squad car, and even activated the siren. Grandmother was overjoyed. She later told her daughter, "You made my life." She continued to be excited to tell people about her arrest for months. She also gets a beautiful memento to help her recall the day. Apart from the day's pictures, Granny has something extremely unique, a junior cop badge that is distributed to kids as a part of the department's outreach initiative. Grandma, who is 93 years old, is arguably the oldest individual to be classified as a junior officer, but she is not the only one to profit from the force's generosity. In actuality, the local police force in Augusta, Maine is always ready to provide a warm greeting and show compassion to anyone who is in need. The pictures on their Facebook page clearly demonstrate how much fun they have messing about. They occasionally get to hang out with other superheroes from America, including Spider-Man, along with a few princesses and other vibrant figures. The local police have also posed with Anna and Elsa from Frozen, always willing to snap a picture. What a fantastic image of the family. For some reason, Frosty the Snowman seems to be taking Olaf's place. Olaf is presumably not too happy by the commotion, or maybe there's something more criminal in the white powder in his snow flurry. The Augusta, Maine police are also more than happy to make an appearance and provide a hand to neighborhood enterprises, such as children's lemonade stands. This picture suggests that these officers are more than simply cool. Not every police officer is as adored as the ones in Augusta, Maine, which may be due to some recent stories of children being punished for dealing without a permission. We've all had slow days at work, so it's good to see the Augusta, Maine police officers making the most of their downtime by doing good deeds like giving away free hugs. It's true that a policeman did more than merely walk around the town brandishing a placard to apprehend offenders. As evidenced by the breathtakingly beautiful Samantha Sepulveda, the cliché of the donut-loving officer isn't always accurate. Nevertheless, everyone enjoys a good donut from time to time, and the Augusta, Maine Police Department has no problem with the public knowing this. Maybe their constant sugar high explains their cheerful demeanor. Grandma still adores and takes care of her grandkids, and she will happily share her cop fascination with everyone who would listen. One of the finest things that has ever occurred to her is her arrest. Hopefully, her grandchildren will hear her tales and be motivated to work as junior police officers themselves in the future. When police arrested your grandma on her 93rd birthday, she was overjoyed. For the 6th time, the dog was brought back to the shelter. Then a startling discovery was discovered by the personnel. Benji was a gorgeous puppy who was brimming with vitality at just 4 years old. The only problem was that, despite having been adopted 7 times, he was promptly returned to the shelter with little to no explanation each time he found a new home. Why wasn't Benji feeling well? Why was this sad little puppy being turned down by so many families? One staff member found something unexpected that clarified everything when she brought him home for the evening. Benji was a little dog, but he was amiable and content. He was without a doubt one of the most loving dogs ever, and he enjoyed playing and receiving attention from everyone. People flocked to adopt him because of this. Nevertheless, each time a family brought him home, they would give him back after 3 or 4 weeks. When the family brought Benji home, the shelter staff was baffled as to what went wrong, and their explanations did nothing to help. One family said he just didn't fit in, while another claimed they had just had second thoughts. One family claimed he was too animated for them, and another claimed he had little interest in going on walks or doing anything else. Staff found it hard to imagine that Benji wasn't friendly enough, according to one of the families. It was just not adding up. The reason Benji was brought back to the shelter again and over again was not shared. Despite his seeming perfection, there was something about him that families just couldn't seem to get along with. One young student who worked at the shelter offered to take him home so that others could see him in a non-shelter environment in an effort to investigate the matter. Besides, she and Benji had always gotten along, and she loved to play and pamper over him while she worked. She thought he was hilarious and cute, and she adored his high energy and upbeat nature. It was a wise choice. Benji became very enthusiastic, so Clara put him in a carrier and brought him to her car. Clara was apprehensive about how things would go, but all she could do was grin at his enthusiasm. Were the relatives of Benji correct? Was there a problem with him? Did he really change that much after leaving the shelter? She prayed that was not the situation. When Clara arrived home, she opened the cage and allowed Benji to wander out of it at his own pace. She didn't want to push him or make him feel uncomfortable, so she left the room and tended to her other pet while Benji plucked up the courage to explore his new surroundings. After around half an hour, the little dog slowly started to step out of his cage and look around. He might have been an excitable dog that was full of energy, but that didn't stop him from being a little curious when in a new and unfamiliar place. He started sniffing around and eventually made himself at home, running around the room and happily yapping at everything. That was the Benji that Clara knew. After a while, Clara came back. However, her elderly dog Maxwell and one of her cats, Lizzie, followed her as she opened the door to the room. Benji instantly altered. With his teeth bared in a vicious snarl, he sprang for the pair of strange creatures. Even though he was just a little dog, he was undoubtedly frightening. The cat Lizzie just sprang out of the path, but Maxwell was too weak to do so and ducked behind Clara. Startled by the unexpected disorder appearing in front of her, Clara hurriedly escorted her dog and cat out of the room. Then Benji abruptly changed back into the joyful, energetic dog she had known from the shelter, as if by magic. It was really peculiar. This was the moment when Clara's mind began to make sense. It's possible that Benji's former owners were concealing his aggressive tendencies, since none of them had truly provided solid, consistent justifications for returning him. She promised herself that when she got to work the next morning, she would investigate this hypothesis. For the time being, though, Clara provided food, drink, and blankets to make Benji comfortable and made sure to double-check that the door was shut. She wished for no arguments to start overnight. Fortunately, everything went well the following morning, and Clara left to go to work at the shelter. She found all of Benji's prior owners by opening his file as soon as she got there. She was resolved to sort things out and find the truth about Benji's problem. As she began to phone the different households, it quickly became evident that Benji had visited houses with other pets in every one of them. Benji had acted violently and aggressively toward the family's other dogs, just as Clara had predicted, and they were forced to give him back to the shelter. It was also evident that the families had concealed Benji's aggressive behavior in the hopes that he would be able to find a family that would accept him, since none of them wanted to get him into trouble, or worse, be put down at everything made clear at last. The finest part of all was that Clara could really take action to address the frequent reason for Benji's return. She may attempt to educate Benji how to coexist peacefully and contentedly with other animals and to be less antagonistic toward other pets. Then perhaps he would find a family to love, adopt, and care for him indefinitely. The crucial issue was, however, would the training truly be effective? Dogs are not always able to change their behavior, even with your best efforts and dedication. With all her heart, Clara hoped that Benji wasn't one of those dogs. She began cautiously, by her pets were quite inquisitive when she let them view each other via a gate, but Benji remained irate and aggressive, biting and barking at the barrier. Things were tight for several days, and it felt like Benji was merely a dog who would always be a threat to other animals. However, he began to become accustomed to their presence over time. Clara could see a miracle gradually taking place in front of her eyes. One evening, she happened to catch her cat Lizzie sitting in Benji's room when he was only playing with a ball and causing no trouble at all. Before long, she gained the self-assurance to open the gate, let her dog Maxwell roam inside, and reunite with Benji. Unsure of how to respond, Benji sprung up as Maxwell entered. He appeared a little hesitant, but by now he was acclimated to Maxwell's scent. Positively, though, he wasn't acting aggressively. Was Clara the one who had done it? Had she turned Benji into a more canine companion? As she saw Benji approach Maxwell, she remained wary and cautious. Was this an attack from him? What she saw melted her heart. He started sniffing Clara's old dog and his tail started wagging. Soon enough, the two dogs were happily playing with a ball and chasing each other around. There was no sign of violence or aggression. It was as if the two dogs had known each other for a lifetime. And when they were done playing and resting on Benji's bed, Lizzie, the cat, even wandered up and gave Benji a few licks before curling up to sleep between the two dogs. It was heartwarming to see, and Clara was proud that all her hard work had paid off. When it came time for her to give Benji back to the shelter so that he could be put up for adoption once more, the most odd thing happened. She refused to say goodbye. During Benji's time with her, Clara developed a strong bond with the small dog, and she sensed that he felt the same way about her. It appeared like he even enjoyed making new pals. Clara decided that she would be the one to adopt Benji and provide him with a lifelong home. There was no way she could turn him away now that he was a comfortable member of her family. It simply goes to show that some love, care, patience, and most importantly, training really go a long way, even though Clara wasn't sure about Benji at first. Fortunately, Benji improved to become not only a decent dog, but an excellent dog with some training. With a dog such as Benji, how would you have handled him? Would you have sent him back to the shelter, or could you have dealt with his mischievous behavior? Please feel free to share your ideas and opinions in the space provided for comments below. I would be delighted to hear from you. An odd find was discovered by auctioneers following the deaths of two siblings who left their home abandoned. Following the deaths of Jack and Audrey Newton in the English Midlands, a nearby auction company was contacted. It was accordingly assigned to the team to appraise and sell the deceased siblings' possessions. Strangely enough, though, it felt as though the reviewing specialists had entered another reality. When they reached the Newtons' farmhouse in 2015, Jack and Audrey, a brother and sister duo, had spent almost 70 years residing at Grange Farm, which is situated outside the village of Brighton on Dunsmore in Warwickshire, England. They assisted their parents in farming the 115 acres of land that belonged to the property and kept cattle and pigs when they moved to the charming home in the 1940s. As we shall see, the Newton family's farmhouse survived World War II, despite the fact that German Luftwaffe bombs nearly destroyed the neighboring city of Coventry. The Newton family forewent many of the conveniences of contemporary living. Rather, they chose to lead a modest life centered on their property, their animals, and their charming Queen Anne-style home. Thus, the Newton family's way of life seemed to be very perfect in several aspects. However, Jack's calm life was upended when he volunteered in the military to do his duty and flew with the Royal Air Force in World War II. Audrey kept herself busy in the interim by helping her parents and discovering a liking for music and the arts. Audrey's fascination with culture drove her to travel to the metropolis and away from Brighton on Dunsmore. She in particular made a link with the Belgrade Theatre in Coventry, which led to Grange Farm hosting a number of actors throughout the years. The English singer and actor Michael Crawford, who rose to fame and wealth on Broadway as the Phantom of the Opera star, was the most well-known thespian to pass through the door, having served his nation and king during the war. Jack went back to Grange Farm. Then, as the years went by, the elder Newtons departed from this life, but the loving siblings carried on with their simple existence. They both never got married, and in addition to turning down partners and kids, it seems like they turned down practically every new invention. It appears that their preference was for the house to stay in the same condition as when they moved in. And Jack and Audrey kept working the land as they always had. Even after they sold the farm's livestock, sadly though, Audrey finally passed away in 2011 at the age of 80. At the ripe old age of 99, Jack passed away 4 years later in March 2015, so Grange Farm was empty for the first time since the 1940s. The Newtons had no near relatives who may have inherited the land. However, although the details of Jack and Audrey's will are kept private, the executors were about to take a drastic step. The executors of the estate decided to sell Grange Farm and hold an auction of its contents in order to reach a settlement with the beneficiaries. Things started to become intriguing at this point. Hawkins and Harrison, two nearby real estate brokers, intervened to arrange the sale of the land and everything on it. Still, it's doubtful the experts realized what they were getting themselves into. As the auction valuers from Hawkins and Harrison discovered upon entering Grange Farm, it truly seemed like they had stepped into a time warp. Upon initial observation, it appeared as though the family had not made any changes to the house since moving in 70 years prior. Every piece of furniture and fixtures, decorations, and commonplace objects appeared to provide a fascinating window into 1940s family life. Furthermore, a large number of the Newtons' previous belongings were much older. There were antiques everywhere you looked in the spacious 9-bedroom home. Furthermore, although many things were solely ornamental, others served a useful purpose. The Newtons had in fact left behind items they had used all the way up until the end, such as an antique sewing machine, wrought iron bed frames, a typewriter, and a traditional larder in place of a contemporary refrigerator. The brother and sister's interests and passions were mirrored in other contents. A variety of antique instruments, recordings, and sheet music, some of which date back to the 1920s, were among the astounding items. The auction company also discovered vintage binoculars and film cameras, and amputation equipment from the war was among the most strange objects. Pat Ruck was amazed with Grange Farm and everything in it. Pat Ruck assisted in planning the auction for the executors in charge of the Newtons' will. He told the Coventry Telegraph, "The contents of the house have not been touched since the time of their late parents." Ruck, who was captivated, said, "It's a time warp of interesting items, curiosities, and even war memorabilia." Still, the guy thought of the previous owners of Grange Farm. "The Newtons never married, but they had an interesting life," he said. "Actually, a bygone period is coming to an end. Shane Morris, a neighbor of the Newtons, talked with the Daily Mail when one of its reporters visited Brighton on Dunsmore to confirm the story. The siblings, according to Morris, belonged to the make-do and mend generation. Yes, Jack and Audrey had grown up during the Great Depression, endured the hardships of World War II, and had known what it was like to live in extreme austerity throughout the post-war years. Apparently, all of this had made an impression. "It's an old person's house, but they never threw anything away," Morris stated. Morris went on, "They were incredibly careful individuals who maintained things even before recycling came around. Jack was a master of all trades who served in the RAF during the war. He accomplished a great deal. As they grew older, they sold their pigs and cattle, but continued to cultivate the land." Now, Hawkins and Harrison had an open house before the big auction of the Grange Farm items. This made it possible the public has advance access to the auction lots and information about the Newton family's lifestyle. An official from the company said that flinging the doors open was really well liked. It seems that amazed tourists came from all around to see the museum's exhibits. Then, in June 2015, an auction at Grange Farm was conducted to sell the Newtons' belongings. The event drew hundreds of visitors because of the historical and antique attraction and worth of some of the lots. It's possible that a large number of guests wanted to take home a piece of history. Shane Morris, a resident of Brighton on Dunsmore, was one of the guests. He was hoping to obtain a memento to commemorate the Newtons. "They were very private people, but they were very nice and caring to their friends," he clarified to the Daily Mail at the time. "They remained loyal to you. My wife and I would bid on a few things to preserve as keepsakes because they were like parents to us." Ultimately, every one of the 500 available lots was purchased at the auction. Additionally, a gold pocket watch that sold for an astounding £600, about $840, was one of the pieces. After the event, Sean Barron of Hawkins and Harrison told the Coventry Telegraph, "It was a really good day with a great crowd." Subsequent to organizing the auction of the Newton family's belongings, Grange Farm was put up for sale, fetching about $900,000. Many auction purchasers are still touched by Jack and Audrey's legacy, despite their passing and lack of successors. The successful bidders for those intriguing artifacts have probably silently expressed gratitude to the Newtons for their remarkable historical preservation. One of the most terrifying creatures in the wild, wolves are too dangerous to approach up close, don't they? Maybe after reading this tale of Romeo, a large black wolf, you may have a different opinion. Welcome back to yet another incredible tale. The fact that everyone is aware that wolves are deadly predators with the innate need to live by whatever means possible makes one of the most significant distinctions between a wild wolf and our cherished dog friends. For our own security as well as theirs, it is therefore safer to stay away from them whenever possible, despite the fact that we may believe they are amazing animals. However, the encounter with one of these elusive animals in 2004 outside the Juneau house of Alaskan wildlife photographer Nick Johns and his dog Dakota transformed their lives irrevocably. The day was cold in the winter. A large black wolf suddenly appeared from the neighboring woodland when Nick Johns and his dog were enjoying the tranquility on their back veranda. Dakota darted off the porch and straight into the untamed dog before Nick could stop him. Nick waited in expectation, praying the wolf wouldn't harm his companion, knowing he couldn't go and drag his beloved dog back out of concern for his safety. The dog approached the untamed creature, and Nick was only waiting for the right opportunity to attack the dog because it appeared to be a simple meal. However, an incredible event transpired. The dog and the wolf began playing together rather than fighting. Nick was in shock at what he saw. The enormous predator was playing like a gigantic puppy running about. The wolf remained in the vicinity and played with Dakota and many other dogs in the neighborhood after their initial meeting. Nick began recording the weird creature's interactions with all of the neighborhood pets after becoming excited. At first, Nick's wife wasn't as excited about this newcomer to the neighborhood, but she did end up giving the wolf the moniker that would become synonymous with him. "My wife," Nick remarked, "was looking out the window one chilly morning, and there was the wolf curled up out on the lake ice, waiting for Dakota to come out." She did not exactly approve of this miscegenation. Nick added. She replied, "There's that Romeo wolf again," in that somewhat protective, arms-folded sound that any mother would use with a cute teenage daughter. Nick immediately realized that this wolf was unlike any other. The wild dog was quite beautiful, with coarse hair and shrewd eyes, yet in spite of his powerful build, he didn't appear hostile at all. Romeo seems to start having the same level of trust with the photographer as well. The wolf in Mendenhall Glacier Park quickly established himself as a regular part of the community and was well known for engaging in dog play. Romeo was not only dispelling all of the stereotypes that Nick and other people had ever encountered about wolves, but he was also demonstrating that his affection for other canines was a continuous emotion. People were first afraid of the enormous black wolf, and who wouldn't be? However, it quickly became apparent that his intentions were pure and that all he wanted to do was play with the other dogs, something the cherished creatures were more than happy to oblige him with. Over time, some Juneau residents became used to the unusual animal and began to perceive the wolf from a different perspective. Romeo quickly started to trust the locals too, as if he sensed they didn't want to harm him. In an interview, Nick stated, "The wolf would bring out toys that he'd stashed. One of them was a foam float. Romeo would grab it and carry it over to my friend Harry so he could toss it. It seemed as though he considered himself to be a dog." Nick started to wonder whether he might possibly form a relationship with the wolf that would be comparable to his relationship with his dog after noticing this unexpected side to the usually savage animal. The photographer would relate the story of the incredible wolf to anybody who would listen. Given that dogs enjoyed playing with toys more than people, he was aware of how essential toys were to many of them. Fortunately, Romeo demonstrated that, like any other dog, he enjoyed playing when Nick handed him toys to see how he would respond. Nick thought that the time the untamed animal was spending with the tamed dogs was having a beneficial effect on him. "He clearly understood the same sort of behaviors that we see in dogs," stated Nick. And it's possible that Romeo used his understanding to pick up on how he could fit in with the local dogs and humans in order to survive in unfamiliar territory. Romeo, having grown up in a pack, had probably absorbed some social skills from that experience. Since collaborating is the most effective and secure strategy for surviving in the wild, wolves frequently do so. Romeo very likely realized that he needed to make friends with the dogs at the park in order to live. Romeo was becoming more at ease with others, although he still maintained a respectful distance most of the time. Nick was one of the few people he would approach closely, but even though the photographer had several opportunities to pet the wolf, he was aware that it was still a wild animal and that he shouldn't attempt to handle it like a typical dog. Romeo stayed in the Juneau region for 6 years, having pleasure and playing with the dogs. "We were these 3 species working out how to get along harmoniously, and we did," Nick said. The photographer never would have thought that a fortuitous meeting with such a magnificent and inspirational animal could result in a relationship that would endure for so long. Romeo came to represent the community's connection to the outdoors at that period. The remarkable coexistence of the wolf, dogs, and humans in the little town made it evident to anyone outside the region how special it was. "I'm going to the lake to see the wolf," people would frequently say, as though they were going to see a well-known acquaintance. Sadly, not everyone in the neighborhood had the same sentiments. Because wolves are typically perceived as dangerous, several people were afraid of Romeo and thought he might turn violent. However, the wolf came to be loved by most people as a part of their society. His relationship with the dogs and the people was extraordinarily unique. The huge black dog terrified strangers, but people who knew him well saw past his intimidating appearance and saw that he was just a playful, lovable dog. Then catastrophe came one day. There is always someone who would like to get rid of the strange thing completely. Even for some who are content to live in harmony with others, they may not entirely understand, but are prepared to try. Romeo, regrettably, experienced this in 2010. He spent many years dodging intentional efforts to take his life, such as those involving scented traps, busy roadways, illegal hunting, and even a poisoning attempt. Sadly, he was shot and murdered by 2 locals of the area he enjoyed visiting, Park Myers III and his buddy Jeff Peacock from Pennsylvania. Following their arrest, the 2 men received penalties, many years of probation, and a temporary suspension of their hunting and fishing licenses. All of this, though, would not bring back the wolf who had cheerfully professed his love to the people of Juneau. The Juneau people were inconsolable. They would no longer be able to see Romeo play with them at the nature reserve with their dogs and kids. Romeo's longevity was far greater than that of a wolf, which was the sole consolation from this ordeal. Wolves typically live to be 3 years old, but many people thought Romeo was nearly 3 times that old when he passed away. The residents of Juneau made the decision to honor the wolf with a memorial after learning of his passing. Romeo's photo was even included into a commemorative memorial that the community created to show visitors how much the incredible animal meant to them. Although it was obvious that the plaque would never be able to fully replace the genuine animal, it gave people comfort in knowing that he will always be remembered. The inscription, which is still in Juneau, says, Romeo, 2003 to 2009. This rugged region is home to the friendly black wolf spirit of Juneau. Nick also went on to publish A Wolf Called Romeo, a book to share the tale of this incredible animal with the world. Even though his demise was heartbreaking, the wolf lived life to the fullest, inspired and touched countless people, and altered the perception of wolves as anything other than terrible creatures out to get you. How wonderful of a legacy that is. Even while not all stories have happy endings, they all convey a valuable lesson. Romeo demonstrated that one should never judge a book by its cover. Wherever he is, hopefully, he's having fun playing with as many dogs as he wants. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.